Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content. And if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to the very first episode of my brand new series, The Very Best EDC Folding Knife. This is actually going to be a 6-part series that I'm going to do once a week starting today. It's going to consist of Episode 1, which is what you're watching right now, overall size and blade length. Then we'll talk about materials in Episode 2, deployment in Episode 3, lock type in Episode 4, ergonomic lines in Episode 5, and blade shape in Episode 6. There are more things that you could talk about with knives, but I think this is going to be pretty all-encompassing. Why am I doing this? What is this? Well, if you've been a part of my channel for a while, you'll know that periodically I like to do series where I discuss in-depth, little tiny things. Being somebody who's uploaded over 1,600 videos on YouTube, all consisting of knives, right? And I've been in the knife world for well over 10 years and experienced a lot of stuff. I have a lot of thoughts that come in and out of my head from the perspective of a collector, from the perspective of an enthusiast, and especially from the perspective of somebody who does carry and use his knives. I've done a series called Quest for the Perfect Budget Knife, where I talked about, maximizing the utility of the item in your pocket and minimizing the overall cost, right? And talking about all those different elements in a multi-part series. You can check that out on my channel as well. I also did a series called Quest for the Perfect Folding Knife, where I actually came at it not considering cost and from the perspective of an enthusiast, right? I prefer titanium because I like how it feels. It's not the most, ideal material for every circumstance, right? It also creates kind of a heavy knife. I also kind of just like, from an enthusiast perspective, I like a larger knife. Spyderco Shaman being the one that I named closest to Excalibur, alongside probably the Demco 8020 and the Hinderer XM18 in full titanium, right? Those check all my enthusiast boxes, right? But they are admittedly overkill for my day-to-day lifestyle. They are admittedly overkill. It's just something that I enjoy, right? If you're a pure user, right, you're going to say, why do you get so hung up on all those little things? I just do. I'm always going to prefer personally a larger knife, whether or not I even plan to use it, right? Beyond whether or not that much blade is accurately utilitarian for my day-to-day life, right? I just prefer it. I prefer a lot of interesting enthusiast elements, right? Like the crazy exotic steels, right? The super smooth action, the contoured titanium that's textured, right? But a lot of that stuff is just totally unnecessary. I found that day-to-day, despite all of those preferences, I keep reaching for this guy. Every day when I go out the door, there's probably an 80% chance that I'm going to root around in my collection and find that guy. That's the Spyderco Para 3. How weird, right? I prefer this. In fact, this guy has challenged this guy for pocket time, right? After waiting for Flytanium to finally make those titanium scales. My XM18 user also challenges this guy for pocket time periodically, and so did the Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon. But I always went back to this guy. In fact, I still do. I found that this guy is now seeing more drawer time, and this guy is now seeing more pocket time, despite this being defined on this channel as nearly the perfect, the ultimate pocket knife, right? So I asked myself, taking the enthusiast out of the equation, right, but also not being so hung up on minimizing the cost and just barely scraping by with a budget knife, right? Because I do believe that you can spend more money than $40 and get a better knife, a more capable knife, a knife that will last longer. But obviously there's a point of diminishing returns, where we talked about that in this guy, the Ritter Hogue RSK MK1 G2 a while back. We talked about that being around the point of diminishing returns for materials, what you're getting, what you can get out of it, day-to-day, utilitarian-wise, at about 160. So trying to block out the whole, save as much money as possible, and also ignore, the idea of, like the limitations of your income, right? Taking the enthusiast out of it and taking out the budget element. What am I reaching for? What makes the most ideal folding knife if we come at it from the perspective of somebody who's just going to use the knife on a day-to-day basis, and keep that knife as your companion for as long as possible, right? The perfect EDC knife, the very best EDC knife. Keep in mind, this series is not meant to make you think exactly like me. This is all based on my own opinion and my own usage habits. We all have different occupations. We have different usage styles, right? We use our knives more or less, or more experienced or less experienced with sharpening. So there is absolutely no way to create a hypothetical perfect EDC folding knife for everybody. The idea behind this series is to go over each of these episodes and all the topics from my perspective, give my opinions on it, and then you can take the parts of it that make sense for you and you can apply it to your day-to-day life, right? Everybody lives in different areas where blade length is more or less legal, the deployment type is more or less legal, right? All of that stuff. So, of course, we have to take that into consideration. I think that's all the more introduction that this series needs. So let's go ahead and talk today about overall size and blade length and what I find to be preferable for me. I've got a bunch of knives laid out here that most people are going to recognize. In fact, it's very likely that most of the people watching this video, you own at least one of these knives. Ontario Rat 1 and 2, Spyderco Sage, Spyderco Para 3, Spyderco Delica, Spyderco PM2, the Mini Griptilian and the large Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue. We've got the Benchmade Mini Crooked River, QSP Penguin, Civivi Ortis, Civivi Praxis, and the Spyderco Shaman. All of these, there's a reason that all of these knives are so popular. They do in some ways appeal to the enthusiast, but they also are all kind of around a more reasonable size, save the larger guys like the PM2, the Rat 1, the Praxis, and the Shaman, and maybe the Ritter Hogue are all on the larger side. When it comes to day-to-day, I could get by with something as simple as the Victorinox Cadet, right? Honestly, I could probably get by with something like a micro knife. I could get by with a little teeny tiny knife, right? Would it be enjoyable or convenient? No. Honestly, I just don't like it. I found that my natural preferences lie in a knife that I can get a full purchase on. And that is definitely going to be the foundation when we talk about what's preferable for me in terms of overall size, right? I have to be able to get a full grip on it. It's the reason why I won't EDC the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. A lot of people don't care, right? A lot of you are telling me, I don't care if my pinky falls off the end of it, or maybe your hands are a little smaller than mine and you can get a full grip on it, right? Or a comfortable full grip. That's fine. But for me, no, I like to be able to move around a little bit. And I found that because the Para 3 actually has a little bit of awkwardness in terms of blade to handle ratio, this is actually preferable for me because I can get a full 4-finger grip that's admittedly a little cramped back here when I'm choked back, but I can choke up and it's unbelievably comfortable. I have a lot of options with this knife, moving my hands around, right? But it's also not so big that I find it cumbersome or unnecessary. Part of the reason why the Shaman, which also has something similar going on, lots of handle room, you can choke up, right? It's got a lot of blade. Part of the reason why I found that even if it didn't have the titanium scales, a lot of people would say you could solve that problem by removing the titanium scales and just putting the G10 back on it, right? Because then it's not so cumbersome. It's more about the overall, well, it's the weight and the overall size. I've just found is I'm subconsciously more aware of that thing being in my pocket when I'm going about my day than this guy. I like to focus on my day, whatever it is that I'm doing, right? And just have a knife in case I come across something that I need to use it for. Knives are tools of convenience for a lot of people. I'm not going to carry around a tool bag and carry every single tool that I might need in any conceivable circumstance, right? If I'm working on a construction site or a job site, you bet I'm going to have as many different tools as I might need, right? But just walking around, no, I'm not going to have all that extra stuff. I'm going to have a knife on me. And if I've got something that needs to be accomplished that maybe the knife isn't exactly the right tool for, I'm still going to be happy that that knife is there. I might be able to, complete a non-specific knife task with a knife, right? Rather than carrying 10 pounds of other tools on me being like, I got exactly the right tool for that. No, that's not my day-to-day. I don't come across that many different types of things that I need a specific tool for. I found that a knife solves 99% of my, my issues when it comes to just my day-to-day stuff. Cutting open boxes, cutting plastic straps, right? Rope, maybe a little bit of rubber, doing some light digging or scraping, and occasionally cutting a callus off of my hands from whatever it is that I do, from weights and from work and stuff like that, right? That's what I use my knife for. I don't like to be weighed down by extra stuff. I like to carry my phone, my wallet, and a single pocket knife. That's what I like. I've tried carrying other knives, other tools. I've tried carrying a Leatherman. Don't like it, don't want it. I just want one knife. And that has solved 99% of my problems. Found that the combination of the length of handle where I can put my hands right the combination of that with a simple and smaller blade, because the overall length, right? The reason that I don't like to carry the PM2 as much is it's just too much. I'm so much more aware of how much longer this knife is, and how much more blade there is, than I actually need. Truthfully, the blade length on this guy, which is coming in just shy of 3 inches, is probably a little bit more blade than I need, but the profile when closed, right, considering I like the handle shape is just perfect for me. The amount of blade and how it fits into the handle and how it carries when it's closed, I've just found to be ideal when I really thought about it. So as far as blade length for me, again, you have to consider where you live. I'll tell you, I'll give you two here so we can, kind of, I guess, reach as many people as possible with this hypothetically. If I was designing a knife that was meant to be, preferable for a lot of people, it would probably need to have 2 blade lengths. There'd probably need to be a larger and smaller version, which is why we see couples like the large and small Rat, the large and small Griptilian, and the Para 3 and PM2, which, let's be honest, it's large and small versions of those guys. That's why we see that. That's why those models do so well. You can choose the one that either fits your preferences in terms of legalities in your local area, or that just, matches your hand a little bit better. So if I was designing something and going to put it on the market, which that's not what I'm doing here, but if I was, yeah, I would have to. There'd have to be one that was definitely under 3 inches in blade, and there'd be a larger one, probably something between 8 and 8.5 inches with about a 3.5 inch blade. That's going to cover the widest ground, right? Not going to solve the issue for every single person, but that's going to solve the widest, or that's going to cover the most ground for the largest population. Now, for me, I found that right about the length of the Spyderco Para 3, which for anybody who doesn't know is 7.25 inches overall, right? And has a sub 3 inch blade, measuring it very clearly right now at 2.9 inches. That's great for a lot of reasons. Number one, I have never been in a situation where this wasn't enough blade for me. Are there tasks out there that would require a longer blade? Sure. It doesn't seem to be something I'm likely to, find in my day-to-day because it hasn't come up. Everything that I have ever needed a knife for could be accomplished with this Para 3. And you know what? If I go through life and 2 to 3 times for my entire life, is there a task that required more blade than the Para 3? All right, I'm still okay with that. That's perfectly fine. I don't think that's going to, really cause that much of a damper. What if it's a life and death scenario? What about this? What if you get attacked by a grizzly bear in the parking lot of your local grocery store? Well, that's unfortunate, but I don't foresee that being the case. So I'm happy with the logic of just carrying something like this. That's right about logically what I found that I prefer and or kind of need on a day-to-day basis, right? So, no more than, for me, about 7.5 inches, right? Anything in there, 7 to 7.5 inches. And I don't think I really need more than a 3 inch blade, or in this, I'm going to say 2.9 inches, because I feel pretty comfortable if I travel out of state carrying this guy. Because a lot of states, if they do have a law, it's 3 inches or less, which this is still falling into. It obviously doesn't solve every legal situation that I could come in contact with, right? But I'll adjust, I'll calibrate if I go to California, which I've never been there, and I guess if we go on vacation and then I won't, I can't carry the Para 3, right? But as far as the stuff that I'm likely to do, where I'm likely to go, what's likely to happen day to day, where I'm going to need a knife, that's about where I'd like to be. Right? There's other elements, right? We're just talking about overall size and blade length today. There's other elements that would couple well with a lot of the what I've talked about today, but we're going to talk about that specifically in other episodes. Of course, the episode list that I talked about at the beginning. Spyderco Chaparral is not Chaparral. The Sage I found is also, it was kind of this guy when I unboxed this, I realized how much I loved it and why I loved it so much. There's different versions of the Sage. They have the compression lock and the bolt action lock, right? This is just a liner lock. But it's very similar to the Para 3, and I found there were elements there that I actually enjoyed more than the Para 3. And that's what really got me thinking about it, right? Delica, very, very similar. It's also one that makes it into my pocket a lot, right? The Rat 2, I think not a lot of people are going to argue that that's also a really nice EDC size knife. So if you're not a big Para 3 fan, We'll throw the Civivi Ortus in there too. These right here, really, I found that I really appreciate. I think actually even, yeah. These knives are all within the same size range that I'm talking about here. And every time I carry them, each one has elements that are more or less preferable beyond the size, right? And that determines exactly how much pocket time they get. But I found that they're very comfortable to carry, no matter what it is that I'm wearing. And they can all do the jobs that I'm likely to, come across day to day. Anything smaller I've found to be a little bit too small. Anything larger I found to be a little bit unnecessary, and there's a part of my brain that's too aware that that big object is in my pocket and it bothers me. I don't want to have to think about it, right? I want these things to just be tools of convenience that are there if I need them for the few cutting tasks that I come across on a weekly basis. That's, I think, as much as I can put into my ideas behind overall size and blade length and why it is the way that it is. You'll see a lot of these knives returning for different parts of this series, and then we'll also see other knives that are not out on the table right now that are, that'll help drive my point home when we talk about each specific subject. I want you guys to keep in mind that at the end of this series, I will kind of talk about what I think is, a knife that exists that I think is absolutely perfect. And then I'll talk about hypothetically, because you guys kind of know how these series end, something that's absolutely perfect. Every last little detail is exactly right. It doesn't quite exist. So I'll talk about hypothetically if I were to conjure something or create something, what form it would take, right? So there will be a conclusion to this series at the end, and it'll be worth, I think, for a lot of you following along and watching. But like I said, it's not designed to change your mind. It's not designed to say factually this is the best. No, not at all. Take the parts of this that pertain to you, that make sense to you, and then you can, think about them in your own way. But it's mostly just for entertainment, discussion topics, right? We're all knife guys and gals, and stuff like this, I think, is it's fun for people to discuss and to experience and just talk about, right? So, anyways, that's going to be it for part 1 or episode 1 of the very best EDC folding knife. I hope you guys found this mildly entertaining. If you did, or if you're excited for the rest of the series, please leave a like. If you would like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.